It's not his style, and that's fine. So in other words, once you make that adjustment, then everything's just fine.
While we're talking about that, how about Coppola or Coppola? Francis.
Francis. Different in that respect. So? Well, he's more in the gregarious area. And not saying that he's
gregarious.
Well, I'm saying if Woody is on the lesser side of it,
he's over 180
Francis
degrees.
Is more, not 180. Yeah. He certainly brings a certain sense of almost operatic style to his directing, but not that it's bombastic, but
it has a flourish.
It has a flourish, and whereas. Francis will talk about things. Francis will like to just get out there and explain to you the rudiments of, like, if you're doing a scene, he'll say it was inspired by an opera that he saw, and he'll explain to you the history of the opera, and then you'll segue into a conversation about the pasta he cooked that night before, yes. And you'll tell him about a wine you know about. So I mean, he's very Italian, Francis. Yeah. So it's a different kind of person than Woody, but obviously equally as brilliant.
Yeah. Do you learn from other actors? I mean, when you're with Pacino, I mean, what does another actor teach you? Because he obviously doesn't sit down and say, "This is the way you act, Joe."
No, right.
Well, what do you learn from watching Pacino say?
From Pacino, actually, I did learn things from Pacino. I mean, to me, he is one of our great American actors, and it was a thrill to work with him. A lot of times it's an intangible thing what you learn. It's more just a sense of just the way someone conducts themselves, or just it's almost like, I always make baseball analogies, but it'd be like if a hitter was able to watch films of Ted Williams batting, or be able to be there and watch him bat. Yeah. You kind of watch the whole thing, and you're picking up little thing here and little thing there, and little thing here, and it's more like you're seeing it live, and you're seeing the whole thing happen, and maybe you get a little of this here and a little bit there that helps you make some adjustments to yourself.
And what's interesting about it is taking the baseball analogy of Ted Williams or Joe DiMaggio. You can't. They have a hard time, I'm told. I mean, I met Williams and not DiMaggio teaching hitting, even though Williams wrote a great book about hitting. Mm-hmm. One of the great books about hitting was written by Ted Williams. But they have a hard time teaching it simply because their skills are so different.
Right.
Whereas if somebody could watch them, I guess there's something they could divine.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is instinctual, and that's why I'm saying sometimes it's hard to break down exactly what you can be picking up from it. But in the course of a whole film, you're working with good people, you can't help but be somewhat influenced by, as I say, even if it's just a matter of how they conduct themselves, it's all beneficial.
When you were paying your dues, did you ever say, I'm never going to get there?
No.
You always knew?
I don't know if I always knew, but I think you can't ever stop thinking you are going to get there. Yeah. Again, it would be like a guy in the minor leagues, half to believing that he's going to get to the majors someday. Otherwise, why continue to chase?
The dream never.
No, the dream never faded from me, and the dream still doesn't fade from me.
And what's the dream?
There's no end point to the dream. It's like, look at George Burns. I mean, obviously, he's the classic example of a guy who still has not reached the finish line and doesn't want to.
Who says at 100 he's already booked into the London Palladium.
Exactly. So I mean, I would have to say that that's the dream. I mean, if you can get to where George Burns is at, if you can be in your 90s and still be looking toward your gig when you're 100, what more can anybody ask?
I would think also is the joy of being able to know that you have reached a certain plateau, and you're continuing to grow in terms of your skills, in terms of your experiences, and in terms of your craft. I mean, you were doing something where your power continues to accumulate.
Yeah, I mean, it is an ongoing process. It's a nice thing about acting as opposed to sports. Yeah. That at least it's not a question of your body giving up on you, and you have to pretty much segue into another line of work.
Yeah. You and Mamet spent a lot of time between takes talking about sports.
We talk about, we spend a lot of time talking about everything but show business.
Yeah. It's a pleasure to have you on this broadcast. Come back anytime.
My pleasure,
Charlie. I really do. Like to see you back on Broadway, too. Do you think I have time for that anymore?
Oh, sure. I mean, with two small children, it becomes a a very important consideration as to in terms of time and placement and things like that.
Yeah.
But the theater is where I came from, and the theaters will always be something I return to.
Come back anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you. Isabelle Huppert, when we come back, her new film is Madame Bovary. Stay with us.